We've got a great connection today with Mayor Wayne Redekop of Fort Erie. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because we tried to connect with him earlier this week and had some difficulties. And Wayne, you and I were just discussing how important it is to have a great broadband connection during this COVID-19 shutdown, because this is the way people are communicating.
Absolutely. This is really tantamount to people trying to connect with telephones or get electricity 100 years ago. And so it's really basic fundamental service.
Canada Day this week, was the beach busy, and how big were the crowds? Was there any issues with people not social distancing in Fort Erie?
As you know, Bay Beach is limited to the number of people that can actually participate at the beach, and it's mostly residents now with passes. If you're a property owner in Fort Erie, you can get a pass, or passes. So it's really confined to those people at Bay Beach. Up until this July 1st, we had been advising residents from out of town that have been coming to Bay Beach that there are other beaches in Fort Erie, but we're not sure we're going to continue with that practice because those other beaches were getting crowded, and it's difficult to make sure that social distancing is taking place, that the numbers aren't getting out of hand. A lot of anxiety among the residents because of the people that are coming in from out of Niagara, particularly if they're coming from the GTA, which has been the hot spot, or one of the hot spots in Ontario. So we're going day to day, trying to stay on top of it. We've bulked up our bylaw enforcement. We're doing our best to manage it and make sure that residents and our community remains safe.
You also use technology to allow people to find out what the density is on Bay Beach, correct? How is that going?
We have cameras. We have a camera so that you can tap in to our internet site. You can see how many people are on the beach. We use that to monitor that particular beach, but we've got pretty good security and staff there to manage the beach. It hasn't been anywhere near 2,000 yet, and that included yesterday, but we expect those numbers will go up, particularly as residents begin to realize that there is capacity there and that out-of-towners aren't allowed onto the beach, so that they could go to Bay Beach and enjoy the day.
Wayne, some alarming numbers earlier this week from the United States: 128,000 deaths from COVID-19 in the States, 31,000 in New York State alone. Right now, the border is scheduled to remain closed until July 21st. But there's a lot of speculation that the border should be closed indefinitely. As a border town, what is your opinion on that?
Well, I don't think there's any question that right now the border should remain primarily closed except to essential business or travelers. And the situation in the States, as you say, I mean, the numbers on the weekend were 50,000, I think, new cases in the United States. Now, although that's mostly in California, Arizona, Texas, and Florida, and most of the Northeast has really gotten things under control, and New York City is doing quite well, and New York State is doing better. But the numbers still don't compare with Canada or Ontario in particular, so that we have to be concerned about where this virus comes from and what the impacts could be. I don't think people that are fully aware of how this type of pandemic works don't believe that there'll be some type of rebound or a second surge at some point later in the year. So we really don't want to do things that would facilitate that. And we've done very well in Niagara. Even though there's a periodic upsurge, the numbers are very, very low. Although our friends and neighbors and often relatives are living across the border, and although it does interfere with family relationships, creates havoc with people that were planning weddings, as an example, really is difficult for property owners here who can't get to their cottages. The reality is that if we're concerned primarily about health and safety, then the restrictions have to remain in place. Our message to the federal government will be continue on with the restrictions until such time as there's legitimate, clear, and consistent improvement in the situation in the United States.
Would you make any concessions for those people who live in New York State, for instance, and own a property in the Fort Erie area? Would you make a concession for them? Because I know there's been a lot of frustration from those people who pay taxes here on their property in Fort Erie and can't get to it right now.
If people want to come over here and quarantine in Ontario for 14 days, that'd be something that I think could be considered. But I'm not supportive of travelers going back and forth so they can check their property or enjoy their property. I mean, that's very difficult. And I know a lot of these property owners still work so that they would have an obligation to work. My advice is let's work on making sure that we control the virus. And once that's taken care of, well, then you're welcome back. You know, there's a lot of businesses that are paying taxes right now and they can't operate. So this isn't something that relates to, you know, non-Canadians being prejudiced. This has to do with our country, our province, our communities, trying to make sure that our people are safe.
Thank you, Wayne, for your time. Appreciate that.
You're more than welcome, Mike. Thank you.